I thought I would make an 18-month review on how I feel ever since I started intermittent fasting. I made it a New Year's resolution in January of 2020 to normalize my relationship with food. Now, to understand why I made that resolution, we got to go back a few months before that. I had almost lost my job as an adjunct professor. I had a student who was going to come at my office hours. It was, I believe it was 5 p.m. And I had gotten to my office. I had another job. I had an hour in between, and I had gone to Whole Foods to pick up some food, and I was going to sit at my office to eat. And the student showed up early, and technically the students are technically not allowed in the staff break room, but you got to understand these are 18, 19-year-old kids who don't really think very much about boundaries like that. They need to get their assignments done, and that's the most important thing in their minds, right? And so he comes in, I'm eating, and I kind of motioned to him, I'm in the middle of eating, but I looked at his question and I thought I could answer it in 2 minutes. I've learned to never underestimate something. If you're interrupting yourself, you got to be able to take whatever is going to happen. And there's no sign of him letting up. He goes 5-10 minutes. I just can't wait to get back to my food. And when he saw that I was impatient, he threatened to drop the course. He told me that it was only the second day of class. He's already having trouble setting up homework. How do you drop the course? And now my heart's beating out of my chest, and out of the adrenaline, I somehow get him through the question. And I breathed a sigh of relief when he showed up to class the next day. And sure enough, I think he got an A or a B in the class. So it was all right, but it made me realize just how much, because that wasn't the only situation where I ran into trouble with food. I routinely used to walk out of social events to get to my favorite foods. I gotten into disagreements over food, and then a few years ago I was flying on an airplane when I got very agitated at the person sitting next to me. I mean, certainly there were disagreements between me and the other passenger, but more importantly, I was anxious to get to my favorite foods when we landed back home. And it made me realize just how much strife I was putting myself into, how much trouble I was running into, and how many jobs I may have lost in the past, how many social events, how it impeded on me looking for my future significant other, among other problems. And so I made a resolution in January 2020 to normalize my relationship with food. And I thought I need to learn how life moves on without food, because too many times, just like right now, I don't know if you can tell from my distorted voice, I have a mouth sore. And in the past, that would have been really annoying for me, because I want to get to my favorite foods. I'm anxious about it. I'm angry that I can't eat the way that I want to. And it used to be that when something was to stop me from eating, especially something unexpectedly, right? If I have scheduled work, and I know I can't eat at that time, I can prepare for it. But when the phone rings and I'm not prepared for it, a student shows up at the wrong time, or mouth sores, health problems, being bedridden, that used to be it. It used to make me really angry. I couldn't get to my favorite foods, and it was out of my control. And that's the kind of problem I wanted to avoid. So what I did was I did a few intermittent fasting sessions to kind of relearn how to live life without the food, right? It's just like how some people resolve to go a couple days away from their electronics. I still haven't done that. It gets me really anxious what's accumulating in my email or what's happening to the financial markets every time I take time away from the electronics. I don't day trade or anything, but I like to know if there's any buying opportunities in the financial market. I tried to go a day without connectivity the other day, and that really drove me nuts, and I had to check the price of silver. And then as soon as I turned on the price of silver, I wanted to also check my work email and all that. That's the kind of problem I used to have with food. I still have it with technology, but at least I've resolved the food. So that first day in January 2020, I fasted for 24 hours. And I liked it because it forced me to enjoy other things besides food. If I remember correctly, I called a few friends, wishing them a happy new year without eating, and I realized that wow, I can still handle conversations without food. I could handle reviewing the following semester's material, getting ready for the teaching. I could do that without food. I could do everything else, right? The New Year celebration, and then I handled a number of other events that first month. The following month we had the beginning of Lent, and a friend of mine, he wanted to quit smoking, and I used it as an opportunity to go on a fast. I jokingly said that I might do a 40-day fast. I knew it wasn't going to last 40 days, but I wanted to give myself a little bit of motivation. Now, 2 months into the resolution, we learned that somebody halfway around the world decided to eat something that was unsafe, and as a result, some of us also didn't get access to our favorite foods, right? Or toilet paper, or all the other conveniences of modern life. And that became a big motivation for me because I realized that just months earlier, not having access to that stuff used to drive me into a tailspin where I would self-destruct. Now, what's really interesting is that 18 months later, today, I find that intermittent fasting has kind of forced me to practice my delayed gratification bone, if you will. Because there are times where I'm in the middle of a 24-hour, I'm 12 hours into a fast that I want to go 24 hours, and I'm thinking about something that I want to eat, not necessarily craving it, but just out of habit, I'm thinking, oh my God, it'd be so nice to have this. And then I remember that that food is only 12 hours away. See, I used to get very anxious. I'm a professor, and right now I'm doing a lot of work over Zoom, obviously. Hopefully it won't be too long before we go back to the office. I used to get very visibly agitated when Zoom would malfunction for some reason. So Zoom had this weird feature where you're drawing on the whiteboard of Zoom, and you touch the screen, and before you start drawing, it draws extra lines like all over the screen. That used to visibly frustrate me, and I would sometimes cuss at the screen. Obviously, my students would hear me cussing. And lately, I've been a little bit much more patient with that. Ever since I've learned to delay gratification with food, it seems like I can delay gratification with getting Zoom to work as well. I had lost a job over frustrations like that, if you can believe it. Well, not lost it, I just didn't get the job. What had happened was I was interviewing for a position at Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington, and I had to fill out a stack of forms, maybe 5 or 6 pages of forms. And I'm so used to typing on the computer, and I got so frustrated as I'm filling out the forms. My handwriting becomes a mess, and I was so upset that I picked up one of the pieces of paper and I crumpled it up. And I asked the interviewer, I said, I made a mistake. I think she heard me crumpling it up from the adjacent room, and that I was frustrated. Anyway, I didn't get that job, and I don't know if that's the reason. It certainly didn't help. After that, this was in 2019, if you could believe it. Lately, I've been, earlier today, I picked up this puzzle book called Numbrix. I want to practice writing with my hands more, because I thought back to that incident. And now that I've learned a little bit of delayed gratification, I want to practice handwriting as well, so I don't run into a situation like that again. Obviously, 2020 has been a huge exercise on delaying gratification, with gatherings, with vacations, with going to the office, with, well, a lot of times the grocery store will be out of our favorite foods, with all sorts of issues, like technical problems with Zoom and all that, right? And intermittent fasting has kind of helped me work up that bone. Thanks for watching.